Hi everyone, and welcome to day 2 of the Rwazi Mixer event. We are so glad to have you here once again. Drop a flag from wherever you're watching from. I'm Cynthia, your host today, alongside.
Hi everyone, my name is Grace Kinua. So happy to have all of you here. Thank you so much for waiting on us. We are ready to start off and to kick off. And today we'll be talking about the gig economy. I remember yesterday we talked about leveraging technology. One of the ways to do that is talking about the gig economy. But before we get into that, like we promised on our socials, we have a big announcement for all of you. And I'll invite Tinashe, who's the CEO of Credible Pro, to tell us what that's all about. Tinashe?
Okay, thank you, Grace. Thank you, Cynthia, for launching this and inviting. I guess the cat is out of the bag. The big news is we partnership with Rwazi. We're launching the Rwazi Partners Program. The name may sound familiar. For some of you who have heard the YouTube Partner Program, right? This is something that we take inspiration from. So the Rwazi Partner Program is in line with Rwazi's mission, which is to provide gigs to young Africans across the continent, right? And so, in extension to Rwazi's mission, where they already have 10,000 people who are doing gigs offline, they are extending to online as well. So they're now giving gigs to so that young people can make money online as content creators. And the way to do work is right now, if you're a young content creator or if you're someone with a platform, which is pretty much every young person, and you want to make extra money, now Rwazi is among your options of making money online by creating content that meets certain Rwazi guidelines. And the way the program is being structured, uh, program for young Africans that pays more than the Rwazi Partner Program, whether it's YouTube, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Facebook. Uh, if you're a content creator, the best place or the best to make money is under the Rwazi Partner Program. And we're happy to tell you more details about how that works, what type of content, and we'll be happy if you join this lovely initiative.
Right. Thank you so much for that. And for some more people who might be watching and are wondering, is this really for me? What kind of basic or elementary qualifications are there to actually join and come up as a content creator for this partnership program?
Right. So the whole reward system around this program is more to do with how well your content does,
Mm,
and not as much, right? So you don't have to have 1,000 followers, 200 followers. You don't need that. Of course, it helps with the traction of your post, but you're going
yeah.
to be incentivized based on the traction content that you create, right? So that's
Hmm.
the thinking that I want people to have getting into this, so that for this is for anybody to try and get creative, make some extra money, and also learn through the process, right? And then now, how
Hmm.
the content works is it has to meet certain guidelines. So it has to be content that advances Rwazi's mission in one way or the other. So part of it could just be content where you just mention Rwazi, right? So we're trying to make it as we start, we're just trying to make it as open as possible. We're like, what, young content creators, just go crazy with this. Put Rwazi in your title, put Rwazi in your content, and let's look at how much you can, and we're ready to pay you. And the pay scales are transparent, and we show you a comparison of how you would be paid if you did this for YouTube and how you'd be paid if you did this for Rwazi, how you'd be to do this for Facebook. So you're getting paid based on the likes, the shares, the reactions to posts, and you get a sense of 10 likes, you get $1 or vice versa. So there is a pay scale around it, and yeah, we can share more.
All right. So where can people find more information on this? If they'd like to sign up, or if they'd like to talk to someone and get a bit more in depth of a conversation on that end.
So you go to www.credible.pro/Rwazi, right?
Okay.
Credible.pro/Rwazi.
All
You
right.
get all the information on the partner program. We lay out, important content guidelines, right? So there are two categories of content. There's video, and then there's non-video content. And the best way to think about creating content that's going to do really well is try to look at or to follow really closely the Rwazi official channels, right? The Instagram, to get a good sense of the company's brand DNA. And once you do that, the closer it aligns to that brand DNA, the more likely even the Rwazi official channels are going to promote your content. And the more you're promoted, the more views, the more reactions, the more traction you get, and ultimately, the bigger your payout. But what you're trying to do is we're trying to make sure, right now, the big platforms are paying Africans less than what it costs to buy a loaf of bread, and
Mm,
thankfully we're coming up with better pay scales than that. In fact, if you do really well with this could become this could compete with your full-time job, and in some cases it could even overtake, as is the case for a lot of mappers who have found out that the more you actually approach the gig economy with the seriousness it deserves, and not just this Yahoo boy mentality, but
yeah.
like to look at it as like this is an alternative career. This is the future of work. Work doesn't mean you up and you have a briefcase. Work is now more versatile and is now more dynamic, and this could become one of those things. So yeah, we would be excited to have not just for people who call themselves content creators. I think anybody with a platform is a content creator in their right, right? If you're
Mm,
someone who is creating something, whether you're posting your sunset pictures, or you're posting, your fire captions, or your insightful meditation codes, right? You're a
right.
content creator in some right, because you have a motive, you have a theme, you have a brand that you're trying to espouse, no matter how professional, right, it could be. And so we're just trying to make people within Rwazi in their content creation routine. And once you see the guidelines, a lot of it is not going to be out of your rhythm, right? You won't need to
Mm,
go out of your way too much to get even using the content that you already. Yeah, we were excited. If anybody send it to connect at credible.pro. And yeah, we have you guys.
all right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. We have a bit of technical issues on this end, but as you've all heard, this program is available, it's ready to go, and we invite all of you to look into it, share it with a friend, and we can get started. And I like that Tinashe points out that it's one of the ways to enter into the gig economy, which is what we're talking about today. So, Cynthia, feel free to dig in.
Thank you, Grace. We'll just dive into our discussion. We're going to be talking about the gig economy, and this is a topic that has raised eyebrows, um, especially across the continent. It's something a bit new to some people. Some people have not heard of the gig economy. So I want to start with Natasha. Um, Natasha, can you hear me? Natasha, can you hear me?
Yes, Cynthia, I can hear you.
Okay, great, great, great. So Natasha, WAPI's work heavily revolves around it does revolve around the gig economy. So for someone who is new to whom this word is new, they've not heard of the gig economy, they're here today to learn about the gig economy. Please explain to our audience what is the gig economy and give in context your own society dynamics.
All right. Thank you very much, Cynthia. Gig work is what is found in the gig economy, or the gig economy is a space for gig work. Now, gig work is simply any earning opportunities that are outside the traditional employee-employer relationships, or what you'd call long-term employee-employer relationships, whereby you have a permanent relationship with this employer, and you're constantly working for them, and you're being remunerated, let's say monthly or annually, or whatever it is, that is an ongoing thing. So what happens in the gig economy is that gig work is based on different things. Could be the nature. For example, gig work consists of workers that are working on projects that are timed. It could be a project of, let's say, 2 months, and you work on it, and when it has been accomplished, you are paid according to the work that has been done, or according to the period. So it is simply work as well. The difference with it is that it is paid for per projects worked on, or the period that has been assigned to the gig, or the outcome of the project, depending on the kind of relationship or the kind of agreement that is between the gig worker and the employer. And it does not mean that people who already have full-time relationships or traditional relationships with their employers cannot do gigs. The beauty about gigs in most cases is that you can be able to handle more than one project or more than one task at the same time, depending on what it is, or uh, depending on what amount of time it has been given. So, in a nutshell, that's what I can say about the gig economy.
Okay. In summary, the gig economy is like temporary work that you're paid for, and it's enabled by a digital platform. How have you seen, given Uganda's context, how have you seen the gig economy change from where it was and where it is right now?
Okay. In Uganda's context, I would say that at the moment we are more embracive of it. I believe that people in Uganda, but also Africa at large, are embracing it more. In that, in the past, it seemed like, people that were in the traditional workplace were the only ones that were actually working,
Work
or
economy.
making sensible, money, and stereotypes like that. But now I like that you can actually find a freelancer whose full-time work is to just freelance. Like, they're not necessarily
I think, Natasha, you're breaking. We can't hear you.
Yep.
really attached to any organization.
I think we lost Natasha. Let's proceed with the conversation as we wait for her to get back on. Olamide, can you hear me? Okay, she's back.
Hi, can you hear me?
Okay, as we wait for Natasha's internet to stabilize, Olamide, one of the elements that Job Urban Nigeria highly focuses on is soft skill training for young people. What would you say are the number two soft skills that employers require of people who they want to take on, and which ones are those that you think help individuals thrive most in the gig economy?
Okay, so thank you so much. Apologies for all of the struggles. I don't know, the internet seems not to be friendly this afternoon. But yes, two top skills. I'll say number one is communication. Communication, is is fundamental when it comes to soft skills, workplace, collaborating with other people, and just getting things done. It's one thing to have an idea, it's another thing to be able to communicate it either spoken or written format, right? So communication is key. Just being able to communicate very clear, precise, concise way that's number one. Number two would be also collaboration. I think if there is something that has changed in the world in recent times and even the dynamics of the market is even competition requires collaboration to thrive. You understand what I'm trying to say? So there's a need for the labor market is asking for more young people who know how to collaborate with other people to get problems solved or to. So I would say communication and collaboration.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tinashe. I think I'll move on to. Sorry, thank you so much, Olamide. I'll move on to Tinashe. One of the things that Credible does is give 360, what we can call a 360 view of a person's skills without heavily relying on their CV or their resume. For our audience here, maybe you can just give insight onto what the process is like from the time that you sign up to the point where you're highly recommended by people you've worked with. What is the process like?
Right. So I think for Credible Pro, our thinking is that for a lot of job seekers, right, rather the recruitment process is really just a job seeker presenting themselves to the employer. And these are two people who just met. And so there's only so much that they can learn from each other, about each other in that moment. And a lot of it is hearsay, right? A lot of it is just how the candidate perceives themselves and how they present themselves and how the employer receives that and what the filters that the employer has. And so what we try to do is we try to involve people who know the candidate for longer than the employer into this process. And what that actually how that plays out in reality is we make sure that we're getting reviews and recommendations which are very structured and detailed from people who know this candidate well before the candidate is even considered for an interview, let alone hired. And the skills that we look at are three skills, right? And these are three skills which, from our research, from just digging deep into the gig economy and even just assessing how a lot of employers hire, for us, they seem like they are universal enough. So one of them is communication, for the same reasons that Olamide mentioned. Absolutely agree. The second one is your ability to execute timely, right? Do you execute things on time, right? And this goes back to how the business operates, right? The business is to deliver on a specific budget, on a specific timeline, and that's something that employees have to feed into. And then the third one is your ability to meet expectations. And right, the way we think about this is what this really means is your ability to uh, to fulfill the job description that you were hired for, whatever it is, right? Did you fulfill it? If you are hired to do A, B, C, did you fulfill it? If you are hired to make the company uh, become more digital present, social media, did you do it?
Yeah.
And the reason why we think about it in that way is uh, using the same question that I just gave. The answer could be yes. Yes, you were able to improve your company's digital presence the way we wanted you to. but then maybe you didn't always post every Monday. Maybe you posted, right? Maybe there wasn't, uh, you didn't do, every, because some job descriptions have like 15, bullet points. But at the end of the day, are you delivering on the promise? Are you meeting the expectation?
Yeah.
And so we try to lead with the expectation more than the details, because the details could be many things. It could be, maybe you're learning the system, maybe you read that your audience wasn't really responsive to this kind of content. There's so many, but at the end of the day, did you deliver the promise? And so we get these reviews from people who worked as your superiors. We get them from people who worked with you in the same team. And in cases where you also have subordinates, you try to get reviews from people who were your subordinates. And then get a world of your capabilities, including your own view of how you work. And get, different kind of employers, right? We get employers who want this is form their
I think, Tinashe, are you still there? I think we might have lost him along the way. So we'll, I think, move on to the. Okay, you're back. You're back. Can you hear us?
hello.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you. I don't know if you can hear me. I can
Okay.
hear you.
Okay. Yes. Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. So, I mean, in a nutshell, that's the 360. Some employers use it to inform their selectors. Some employers use it to identify the training needs of their new hires. So it really, use cases are vast.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Just going back to what you said initial reviews are picked from people who have worked with you before and people you've probably collaborated with in the past. Is this an element that is picked from CVs, and how do you make sure that there is no bias um, at all involved?
Right. So I mean, it's a good question, and it's something that we try to we have to actively get better at. Right now, the way we're thinking about it is um, we try to make the the view form, the questionnaire, the talking point need, the insights that we need to get from you. We try to make them intimate as possible. The degree where, if you are someone who doesn't know this professional well, you are unable to, right? Um, we, we want to see proximity to their work that they were doing, and we want you to qualify, what objectives and what was their impact. And the more you ask these questions, if someone is not affiliated or doesn't know this professional as well as they should, uh already the way they answer the questions, you start to see these gaps, right? You start to see that, okay, maybe this person was a bystander, maybe this person was, maybe they worked in the same company, or maybe they didn't manage this person closely. So that's, I guess, that's our first line of defense. Of course, we
Yeah.
do run checks just to make sure that actually you work with this person, that there's evidence of the collaboration. But I think what we ultimately try to do is we try to make people be the judges for themselves to see how useful do you think this recommendation is. We also make it easy for people to define what's a more useful and what's a less useful, or rather what's a more valuable recommendation. So for example, if someone who actually paid me money to give a service gives me a recommendation, that probably has more weight than a recommendation from someone who did not pay me anything, right? Because if you paid me and I gave you a bad service, and then you still go on to say thank you to get me another gig, I mean, I want to join your church, right? So, so there is that. So I think just some of these, we try to, and then if someone paid you to do something, if it's a paid work type review, there's a paid work badge, right? We verify the users, so it's easier for the people who read. But I think our job is not necessarily to moderate the reviews, right? We want to make it easy for people to use their common sense, and then to also see what's a useful review, and what's some bullcrap, so to speak. And then
Okay.
and I think part of our inspiration is really LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn has a recommendation feature, and number one, the observation is that most people don't use it. The average LinkedIn profile doesn't have a recommendation. And then the second, when they use the recommendations, they are not that useful. So you get a recommendation like, say, Cynthia is recommending Grace. Cynthia writes, Grace is such a wonderful person to work with. I I had the best time ever working with her. Exclamation, exclamation. Okay, cool stuff, right? Cool stuff. We get it. You like Grace. Maybe you guys had fun, but what does that actually tell me about working with Grace, right? What does that tell me about working with Grace in a team? What does that tell me if I hire her to join my marketing team? What can I expect? What impact does it look like, right? How does she rub onto the other teammates? Is she a team player? Is she happy to work as an individual? Is she a leader? So, and you find that the majority of the reviews you see on LinkedIn look like that, and you find the useful ones by accident, and it's because there's no structure in place. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a structure around recommendations.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was very insightful. I hope our audience is taking notes. um, Next, I think we'll go. Collins, can you hear us? We can't hear you.
I think he's on mute, maybe.
I think you're muted. Uh, we can't hear you. Can you hear us? No, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, no problem. I think for this particular segment, we are done, and over to you, Grace.
Right. Thank you, Cynthia. Interesting insights about the gig economy. And I think all of you can attest through your work that there's been an upsurge in people taking up gig work, right? And especially for the African youth, and really for the average person who has some connection to the internet, they're able to take on opportunities and things of that nature. But that has also changed the way that we work, the way that we approach work, and the way that we learn. So I'll start with you, Olamide. How has the gig work changed the way that we learn, the way that we take up information, especially in an era where people can take short courses, get citations, and things like those? How has that changed the way that we approach learning and basically getting experience for a job?
Yeah, thank you so much, Grace. I was just going to mention that I guess this internet issue is ubiquitous, right? We all have this
Yeah,
struggle.
it's okay.
Yeah,
Don't worry about
yeah. So, but thinking about how, the entire knowledge fourth industrial revolution has changed what learning and what education would describe as, I think it's quite interesting. So again, even before getting into the area of employment, and helping young people to get into economic opportunities. My work started really trying to understand the 5 major transition areas that affect young people, particularly in Africa. So basically, these transition areas speak to the areas in which young people need to transition for them to be meaningful and decent adults in that sense. And there is a place of education, right? Are they transitioning from primary school to secondary schools? Are they transitioning from secondary schools to universities in that sense? Then there's also the school to work transition. Are they transitioning from school to work? And that's more like what I do now. Then there's also the area of, are they having access to healthcare? Are they able to participate and demonstrate their civic rights and responsibilities? And then finally is also social mobility. Are they able to form families? Are they able to do all of those things? So, and looking at that bucket of education and how it informs transition into work, one thing that the gig economy has done is and the way the internet and revolution transformed the face of learning, is that learning has now been taken beyond what is learned within the four walls of an institution to um, a drive towards solving a problem or creating value. What do I mean? So it's not enough to have a certificate now. It's not enough to say I have a BSc in engineering. The question is, what's maybe BSc in electrical engineering? Can you what understanding do you have around the workings of an electric car, for instance? How can you deploy that information, to create value in your community, considering the context, considering the realities, considering your expectations, and all of that. So things that have been historically straight jacketed that fit into a particular pipeline has significantly more. So I would say learning now is largely self-paced, and the concept of synchronous learning, and all of that, where I'm currently doing a project management course. And yesterday, because of this call, I had to miss the class, but that class was recorded and I could just go back to it, right? So there is that ability to even run conventional programs on a very self-paced level. So learning is now self-paced. Learning is now more self-directed. So it's not just about you get into school, the curriculum is set, you need to learn X, Y, Z in your first year, A, B, C in your second year. No, now you can choose to say, pick these are the skills, these are the competencies I need to deliver this X value. I need to learn this language for the internet, for the tech side of it. You need to pick these skills and then you drive it yourself. You see, so learning is self-paced, learning is self-directed, and learning is now more intentional. So intentional in the sense that it's not just a social status anymore. It's now more of there is an intentionality to it to say, how can I leverage this information or this knowledge to to produce value or to generate income in that sense. So those are really my thoughts around
Mm, thank you for that. And I like that you talk about this idea of learning being self-paced and self-directed. And I think coming off, well, not really coming off, but in the post-pandemic age, where people have been forced to work from home for safety measures and things like those, I think we've also seen an upsurge in people realizing, okay, we don't actually need to be in an office to get work done. So, how has the gig economy and this idea of working from home changed the way that people look at work? Are people more open to going back to office? Are people more open to taking up gigs? And how has that shifted the way that people are looking at their careers now? Tinashe.
Right. So I mean, from my observations, right, I think um, COVID has allowed people to embrace, what we've always known, right?
Mm,
Your productivity uh, really depends on your own self motivation, and so you don't need to be in an office. I think what you need is a good support system, and so I think for as far as that dynamic is concerned, I think now it is just opened people to that idea that, you know what, your work depends on your self motivation, and we are going to find ways to support you to do what you need to do. And for the gig economy, I mean, the gig economy has always been working this way, right? People
Yeah.
who are freelancers have been working this way. They didn't have offices, but they still delivered. So I think it's COVID has opened up, has turned everyone into somewhat of a gig worker, right? This used to be the biggest difference before 2020. The biggest difference between a gig worker and a normal worker was, and now we are all the same, right? Now you
Right.
can't tell the difference is now in how your contract is structured. And then after that, you then go, okay, how is your contract structured, right? And turns out that if you have a full-time contract, it actually doesn't mean anything. You can be let go today, and you know, you don't even know which lawyer to hit up. You don't even have the capacity to do so. So in many ways, a gig worker is a label, and a time worker or the other type of worker is you know, is a more comfortable way for you to go and sleep at night, because you have this illusion of income security. You kind of do, but you don't. You know, it's one of those things. And I think for gig workers, I think what this has done for them is, while it has leveled the playing field, because now all of us are the same, I think it also allows you to think, as long as you are delivering a valuable service to your client, uh, this is your best insurance that they're going to hire your services again. And once you achieve that, you are just like a normal worker, whose boss can wake up, you know, feeling some type of way, or who may cut them off for one reason or the other. So I think I'm just happy that I think eventually we're going to do away with these titles, but I think we are all workers, and I love what this remote working era is doing to work for both gig workers and non-gig workers.
Right, right. Thank you for that. And I appreciate that you talk about the question of security, because it's a real concern for a lot of people. You know, everyone wants to ensure that their family is taken care of and that they're okay. I don't know if Natasha or Collins are still on the call and they can take this question. Um, but if they're not, I'll throw it back to you, Olamide. How exactly, and especially for young people who are just trying to find their way in the world, I think a lot of people are open to taking volunteering gigs or taking internships or things like those, but then that comes also with a certain level of privilege. And even for a gig worker to say that I'm working on contracts, sometimes contracts don't get paid on time, especially in the creative industry. Sometimes things don't pan out the same way as what you'd consider a full-time worker in this case. So what level of security is there within the gig economy, or what structures do you think we can put in place, even as people who are looking to hire people, businesses, managers? What kinds of structures can we put in place to ensure some semblance of security?
Okay, so it was just quite interesting listening to Tinashe's analysis of the entire gig economy and how it intersects with the full-time work, particularly looking at that major variable, which is the security, job security, and all of that. And I like how he also described how that it's what is called security or just full-time employment is an illusion, really, because we have seen the Great Resignation thing, a lot of people getting out of jobs, a lot of organizations also economic meltdown, people are retrenching and all of that. So, however, again, going back to it, there are other benefits that come with formal employment, or not formal employment now, but full-time employment that a gig worker may not have the privilege of. So things like, the entire maybe pension system, you see health insurance, you see mortgage systems that many times are defined within that structured organization, as it were. So I think that the opportunities that exist for us to begin to infuse some of this, will I call them incentives now or securities now, into gig work will be to see how we can leverage some of the aggregators, right? To a large extent, many of this gig work are now beginning to morph into platforms, right? So beyond it just being me reaching out to my brother, or somebody just knowing me and referring me to someone, which is very volatile and vulnerable and precarious, really. Because the fact that I'm recommended to do does not mean when will that kind of recommendation come again. But I think aggregators have put it in a way that there's a platform where the person who is seeking the service meets the person who can deliver the service. I think there's an opportunity within that aggregator system to infuse some of those things. As much as they are not necessarily your employees, or you are not necessarily responsible for their welfare like it would have been in formal employment. Are there partnerships that can be morphed in that process where to see things like, for instance, I know of Bolt in Nigeria, and Bolt is a taxi hailing organization. And I know this because I have a younger sister who works with an health insurance company, and she mentions how there is that model of infusing the drivers who are not necessarily staff of this organization into their HMO process. Not necessarily because you're paying for it, but also you're facilitating that consciousness, you're facilitating that will I say that intentionality in ensuring that even while they don't get gigs in a particular period, their health is insured and that of their family. So I think there is that opportunity for aggregators themselves. I also think that some other health insurance and all of those other securities can have personalized products or packages that reach out to those people even on individual levels. Yeah.
Right. Thank you for that. I think we can go on to the next segment of the conversation today.
Thank you so much, Grace. I hope you can all hear me. Collins, can you hear me? I want you to take this great.
Yes,
I want you to
can you
take
hear me
this.
too?
Yes.
All right,
Thank you.
amazing.
I want you to take this first question. In this segment, we're going to be talking about women and the gig economy. Of course, there's been discussions about inequalities, and somehow we're not sure if those inequalities still transcend into the gig economy. So you have done work with Pareto, which is like a women-owned company. From the women that you've worked with in that firm, what key observations have you made or have you taken that you can pass down to the women in our audience that can help them succeed, not on help them succeed and also help them succeed in the gig economy?
Sure thing. One, not sure if I'm like the best to empower them, but I just want to say like women are amazing leaders. And like all the companies I've worked at where you have a woman as a leader, there's like a high level of success and a high level of belief into the leadership that this woman instills, right? Because I've worked with amazing women like Jackie Ochola, our former country director at Andela, and now the CEO at Pareto, Phoebe Yao, who is really amazing. I work with a beautiful and intelligent and like so many great things, a wonderful woman, Natasha, who is my CEO and co-founder. So they can do amazing things. Like they're one very diligent, one very fair, and I think one thing that stands out from having a woman in a position is like the high level of empathy you get from them when you're actually working with them and the dedication that comes with it, right? Because once a
Yeah.
woman sets out to do something, it's most probably because they want to do it and are going to attach a lot of sentiment to it. So it really gets done so well, right? And that's like a huge asset for companies to have such a leader who is very vested in something, even if sometimes they might not own it. Having that much investment into something is
Yeah.
important. So when we get that much energy into the gig economy, and because at Pareto, what we're basically doing is also sort of gigs. We're empowering women around the world to access virtual tasks. and help
Yeah.
entrepreneurs around the world get like repetitive work done, right? So these ladies do this work repetitively, and like they do it once in a while. Maybe someone wants to get a list of investors for a certain vertical in health tech or anything else, right? And working with these ladies is like so inspiring because they're in the Philippines and the companies they're working with are in the US. So there is about a 8 to 6 hour time difference. But you
Yeah.
see the dedication that they put in to actually get the work done, even with that huge time difference. And it's just
Yeah.
amazing. And
Mm.
beyond just being dedicated, you actually find
Yeah.
that they love the work that they're doing because we jump
Mm.
on calls with them and they're like, "Hey, how you doing?" They want to know how you're doing, and they're really
Mm.
asking all these amazing questions, seeking
Yeah.
clarity, and it's just a touch that comes mostly and in the best embodiment from women.
Okay.
So
Mm.
yeah, I think there'd be a huge asset in the gig economy. Uh, in
Mm.
regards to how much that is happening, it's still greatly to a lesser extent. In
Mm.
general, every almost every industry, women are still not getting as many opportunities or not as involved as we would want it to be, right? But we
Yeah.
can't just stop there. We can't just
Yeah.
stop at the fact that it's not happening.
Yeah.
Keep pushing for it to happen. And it only happens if these women keep seeing other women doing it, keep seeing other women pushing
Mm.
boundaries, keep seeing other women doing
Yeah.
great stuff out there, and then they'll feel empowered to keep doing it. And we also have to do our part to support them and create these
Yeah.
spaces. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Collins. You mentioned that women are still they're involved in the gig economy, but to a lesser extent. This brings me to my next question, which I'm going to pose to Tinashe. Now, gender inequality is still they're not completely erased in the gig economy sector, despite women entering into this space. Only 2 out of 10 women are on these platforms doing work. How do you think that women can position themselves to grab more opportunities? How can they position themselves? I think you're muted. I can't hear you.
Oopsie. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. No, I was just that's a very important question. And to be honest with you, I don't think I've done the right homework, or even as Credible Pro, we've really explored uh, the gender disparity element in the gig economy, or to understand exactly why the female representation is as low as it is, to understand whether it's because women are not getting access to the same information, right? Because I think if that's the case, that is to be interrogated and asserted. I don't know if that's I don't know if women are actually getting access to this information and choosing
Yeah.
to. I don't know. Um,
Okay.
how did you? I mean, with two women panel, uh, how did you guys get access to this information, right? Or from the people that you know, maybe the question would be, what do you think as a woman? What do you think is the reason why it's 2 out of 10 and not 8 out of 10? Like, why do you think that's the case?
Personally, I think that a lot of things come into play as to why women are not occupying these spaces, and some of them are to do at the level of government level and
Pause.
opportunity.
Just, I'm gonna play the devil's advocate for a bit, and I think for
Okay.
for the
Yeah.
sport of it, the spaces you're talking about in this case is what, remote work, gig
Yes.
economy. Is that
Yes.
what you are?
Mhm.
Okay, so
Yes.
let's
Yes.
focus.
Yes. Yeah.
Why
Okay.
are we not adequately as represented as men in the gig economy and remote work.
Okay. Okay. What I was trying to explain is that there is a ripple effect from so many things that prevent women from
Exactly.
getting into these spaces.
Yeah.
You can just look at the numbers of women who are in STEM, women
Mm,
who are doing like software engineering. There's a lot of hindrances that come before a woman gets into into spaces like this and to work in and even to acquire the skills that put them
mhm,
into spaces like this. So there's a
mm,
lot of factors that come into play, but at the level where we are at, as people who are on these platforms, I think the most that we can do right now is refer for us, let me say me and Grace, we can refer more women, women workers who are able to do this work and pull them into this space, because this is how information spreads out to the rest.
mhm,
And for the elements that we cannot control, well, the best
mm,
that we can do, maybe as, for example, as Rwazi, is spread information, advocate, put out more, maybe let's say programs that are inviting women, particularly women, into these spaces. Yeah.
mm. Okay,
Yes.
okay. No, that's interesting, and I'll tell you why. For me, I think I still don't understand the gender lack of representation in these spaces. One personal example I have: when I started Credible Pro, right, I was looking for a co-founder, right.
Okay.
The first two people I made like really substantial offers to were actually, they happened to be women, right? They're two of the most smartest people I knew.
Yeah.
Um, and they both declined my offer. And the grounds were really around uh, the lack of job security, the fact that there wouldn't be income assurance, and I would rather be working for this other person who could
Yeah.
pay me more. And it was the
Okay.
same thing, right? The and for me, I was and I ended up getting a male co-founder. And so, I know now, when you look at our breakdown and you put us in some publication, oh, you're not putting women, but
Yeah.
I think really, really important to understand, because for
Mm.
me, I understand that perhaps maybe due to my,
Mm.
privilege, maybe my ability to take this risk is uh is higher, right? Maybe that's the case.
Yeah.
Maybe I have maybe more safety nets, I don't know. And maybe if we're gonna fix this problem, let's start there. Let's start it, how do we put safety nets? How do we make it easier for women to, if it's more a burden to them, if the lack of security is more burdenous to them than to men, then maybe let's address. Because I always feel whenever these questions are asked, the temptation is sort of just plant people in,
Okay.
and I think you do a disservice to, I think there are a lot of women who actually are trying to enter certain spaces, or who are already in these spaces. uh we're disrespecting the 2 out of 10. Those two. Those
Yeah.
two are already there. I think we are missing an opportunity of finding out what more we can do for the two,
Yeah.
because the glass is half empty and not half full, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe we're forcing people who don't want to be in a space. What about that? And I don't know. And I think we need to research. We need to, and women need to answer these questions, because what do I know? I mean, I'm a man.
Okay. Okay. All right.
But yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Just to go back a bit on what you said, it's not about planting women in these spaces. Well, yes, it's not just about that, because some of these things go back to how most of us were raised, how a certain generation was raised, and we are really trying to change things and educate and impart knowledge in people. But not to take too much time, I have Olamide who'd like to share his thoughts on the very same subject.
Okay, I've been itching to write, share, and the reason is because again we are in the month of women, right? And several conversations have been going on around women. But particularly of interest to me is I'm just wrapping up on a research on the barriers that women face in Nigeria's labor market. You can hear me?
You're a bit faint.
Okay, is it better?
Uh, yes, 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 I can hear you.
Awesome. Okay, so and you know, I feel like in all of the conversations that we are having, we have touched the several aspects of this particular issue. Again, looking at the dynamics of women's entry into STEM, I like to look at it from the funnel approach or from the pipeline approach, from the entry point, right? Um, the question is how many women are even interested? That's the first question. Then the next question is those who are interested, why are they not getting why are they not getting visibility in that sense? Or why are they not getting visibility in that sense? Those who are getting visibility, why are they not getting the role? Those who are getting the roles, why are they not having returns and all of those kind of things? And Tinashe mentioned something quite important about job security and all. And I think that that starts first for that sort of sits within the personal framework of the lens we are trying to look at it. So in thinking about the barriers that women face in entering many of these sectors, we try to classify it into three buckets: the personal bucket, the family and institutional bucket, and then the policy and cultural bucket. So the
Okay.
personal bucket is that a woman has a right, to say I'm interested in the creative and lifestyle industry and not the tech industry. That is
Yeah.
absolutely fine, right?
Okay. Yes.
Although if we go deeper into that conversation, we can argue that why is a woman more interested in the creative and lifestyle industry versus the tech industry? That's another conversation, right?
Okay.
Um, Looking at it from institutional buckets and all of that, um, the way family is structured, institutions are structured, most most times again in Africa, and definitely in other part of the world, does it give a woman that that safety or that security plunge into the space? And then finally, looking at it from that policy and cultural sector, what are the patriarchal ideologies that influence the way these sectors are seen, in terms of gender roles, in terms of role modeling, right? In terms of the perception of women's value and how much they can contribute to a particular sector. So it's a pipeline of things, but I think, and I would like I always say and advocate that tokenism is not the way to solve it, right? Tokenism is, you now begin to create spots for women. I think that it's best to address it from a very structural level. So looking at the educational system, looking at the way women are socialized, looking at the way even men are socialized to handle women, even thinking about the way women who are now in that space are socialized to share their experience about the space, because that's another conversation altogether. For instance, how women who are in leadership think that masculinity is how you exert yourself as a woman. All of those ideologies have to be reviewed and now brought into perspective so that young women, young girls, that either will get interested in this space or will get involved in this space, or are even at the moment
Come
oblivious of
away.
this space, and see it as a pathway for their transition as well, and not just something that may be left to a gender or left to people that are married or left to people that are rebels or whatever. That's
Okay. Thank you so much. That's a very interesting insight. I think we will run back to this later. Natasha would also like to give her insight on the very same subject.
All right. Thank you very much, Cynthia. I just wanted to add to what Tinashe has said, and I think also Olamide was in the same direction. Yesterday, I learned something that is very important and that really moved me. The You know how like we're always trying to fight biases, and yes, we should fight against biases. That is also what work is trying to do. That is also very many. That's also something very many women are trying to do, to fight biases against women, and also even this Women's Month, the theme has been break the bias.
But
But I
yeah.
think that yeah, but I think that one of the things that we need to do, as as we are trying to fight these biases, is to, while spreading information, to empower the women and the girls that it is your responsibility to disprove the biases against you, because there are very many biases that come against, not even just women, like even you can be in a workplace, at a workplace, and someone maybe doesn't like you simply because you dress better than them, or because you smell better than them, and very petty things like that. And sometimes it might subconsciously. Now,
Yeah.
you as a person, you're not going to, put yourself in a shell and be like, okay, I'm biased against, so I shouldn't do this, so I should not maybe go and try this, so I should not progress.
Yeah.
It's your responsibility
Yeah.
to know that so and so things I am not able to maybe learn a new programming language, or maybe to start Kotlin. Let me actually put in the extra hours to disprove
Yeah.
them and make sure that in the workplace where I am, people are not saying that I'm in that position because I am a woman, but it's because of
But
what I
because
can actually do. Yeah. So as we are trying to, spread information, some of the most important information that I think we should spread is to tell women and girls to actually do everything that they need to own those places, to take up those places, to learn the things that they need to learn, and actually execute what they should execute, so that when they're in that
yeah.
place, they are there because of what they can do, and not
Yeah.
because of their agenda or because someone thinks they can't. So yeah.
Okay. 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 Just we'll wrap up the segment in about 5 minutes. I'd like to pose this question to you, Olamide. Can you hear me? I think he's off, so I'll move right back to you, Natasha. Uh, can you hear me, Olamide? He's back.
I can hear you.
Okay, okay. So I'd just like to pose this question to you. So it's not secret that many women are paid much less than men in the spaces that they work in, and this is from some research that has been done. This is from stories of women that we know and that we see every day. As a man, how do you think women can increase their bargaining power to make sure that they earn, that they're on the same level with men?
Okay. I would run this with a quick illustration, and I would say,
Okay.
and I'll use it, a practical example that I had with someone I work with. This person basically was negotiating a pay, um, and while the pay was increased, he didn't get what he was expecting, but the pay got increased, and it was like he wouldn't take it except he got this plan. And then the question was, okay, justify why you should be paid that much, or justify why you should get that. And his only justification at that time was, this person is being paid this, I should be paid this, right? Unfortunately, that didn't fly, right? Because of the logic around it. So now, why am I saying that? The basis of fair compensation would on would on or will I say, unfortunately, would not be trying to match up with them, right? It would be women again coming to understand that they deserve to earn what they deserve to earn. That's the first thing. I know also that there are different arguments around what's it called now? The gender gap, the pay, the gap in the gender gap in the pay, or the pay in the gender gap, or whatever. Sorry. But it's important for women to recognize that it is not it is not it is not a it's not primarily a gender war. Now that's from the women's perspective, because the question is around how women can negotiate, right? It's more from I deliver this value and I deserve to earn this much. And in negotiating that, it's about that delivery of value. The second is also being informed. I think that the major um, onslaught that has affected women in that regard is the ignorance of what's even how to negotiate. Because many times these offers are made and they get it or they jump on it because in their understanding and in their perception of what they should earn on that role, that is okay. But you get into a space or you get into other research and you find out that, oh, I'm actually being shortchanged on the role, right? But that research enables you to, get better. So I'll say it from the first perspective is, a full understanding of self-worth, self-valuation, understanding that irrespective of what your gender is, this is what you deserve to earn on this role. Then secondly, having accurate information that informs even your negotiation. So that by the time you're negotiating, you're not negotiating based on you're not negotiating based on sentiment. You're negotiating based on the value you bring on board. And you're also negotiating based on what you understand that is the market standard, irrespective of if it's male or female. And interestingly, I have women and I know women within paid bands who earn much more than men because they have this level of information, right? Because they have this level of confidence, as it were, and they have this understanding. So, from a women's perspective, I would say these two things are major. Then, from the organizational perspective, that's another conversation altogether.
Okay, okay. All right. Thank you so much, Olamide. Let's have Collins just give us your insight on this quickly, and then we'll move on to Natasha and we'll take a break.
Sure, thanks. One, maybe this is a hard line, but this is what I think. There is no need for a woman to have to negotiate to have the pay as a man who is earning the same money within the same role, within the same experience, within the same skills, within the same value. Like there needs to be no negotiation around that, right? It needs to be
Yeah.
something that happens inherently. It needs to be something that we know to be a fact, but it isn't,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
what needs to be done is not really for women to go ahead and negotiate, but how do we set up systems that make this the de facto way things happen, right?
Okay.
It's not like a woman is going to walk into a government office where these men already know that they're going to give her less, and then she's going to convince them to earn more. Like that's definitely not going to
Okay.
happen. But is there someone
Okay.
who is in a position to make this government office or to make this office make that a mandatory thing? Then yes.
Okay.
So that's one way to do it, right? Second is what Olamide has talked about, right? Knowing value. But I feel this is also very subjective to men who can also fail to negotiate and know their value, right? So this is more of like a human thing. But at the end of the
Okay.
day, we still need to know their value. How do they know their
Okay.
value? It's through information. Like I agree with everything Olamide has said in that regard, and it's only going to happen if we have this information open. And another hard line that then comes in such a position is, do we now start having open salary systems whereby if a woman at this level, sorry, not actually, if a person as I'll use software engineering because I'm a software engineer. If the software engineer one earns 1 million, then why should a woman who is a software engineer one earn 800,000, right? So being open about this information is also one way of doing this, right? So those are some of the things we need to do. But I think the hard line here really needs to be that there needs not to be negotiation, but there needs to be systematic processes that enable this to be the
Okay.
default. And that's like the
Okay.
strongest line we can pull to make it happen.
Okay, thank you so much, Collins. I hope women and employers in our audience, I hope you're taking notes. Moving on to Natasha quickly, I just want you to answer this in 2 minutes because we're running out of time. Now, Africa is big on traditions and beliefs. I'm not opposing, and there are gender roles that exist. A woman should cook, should clean, should take care of her children. And the gig economy does come with flexibility and freedom. So you'll find that from what I've read is that there's often like an imbalance between the two. for women who are in the gig economy. So you could find that maybe you're unable to take on more tasks because of the tasks already assigned to you at home. So how can women leverage on the freedom and flexibility that comes with work to earn yet as much as probably their male counterparts uh, in the same space who do not have all these things going on for them? Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Cynthia, for that question. That's a very important question, actually. I read about something or listened to a podcast about something a few days ago, and it was something that is called weaponized incompetence. So, what weaponized incompetence is, I am able to do something, but because either I don't like doing it or I just don't want to do it, I do it badly so that my partner or the person that is with me is like, it's okay, I'll do it instead, right? And then I'll keep doing it badly, and then they'll keep doing it for me. Then before I know it, they are completely taking it on, and I'm not doing it at all. Not because I can't, I know how to do it, but I just don't enjoy doing it, or I don't want to do it, and then they keep doing it, and before we know it, I'm no longer doing it and they're doing it for me, right? Now that is the thing that has been happening, and that is how gender roles usually get louder. It's not because a man is not able to change the baby's diapers or they cannot do the dishes, they just don't want to do it. So the lady is like, it's okay, I'll do it. And then before you know it, they're not doing it at all. Now that's definitely a bad thing because it's very unfair, of course, to the female person or and all that. So I what we need to do is to raise our boy children and the boys, letting them know that if you can't do something, support the other person, right? Because hey, we are all in a family, we are supposed to support the family. Marriage or even any other relationship is supposed to be a partnership where both people are supporting each other. And so I think that responsibility should be shared so that the other person is also able to do their work or what they are passionate about, while being able to do the other things at home or not even getting entirely overwhelmed. So I think that it's not easy to start telling the men who are already grown up, or even the women, to understand that these people can actually do these things. They just maybe need to be encouraged more and told about what they should do, so that we are all able to support each other and no one is breaking their back. So I think it's again goes back to how we are raising children or how we are being raised, or understanding that we are now in 2022. There's no such thing as the woman is supposed to be in the kitchen or they're supposed to be doing laundry. Yeah, like I can become a software developer, I can become a PR person, whatever I want to be, and we can both share roles at home and we can both put something on the table. So I think it's about how we raise people and how we encourage them. And yeah, we need to have flexible minds. We can't be doing the things that our ancestors were doing.
Okay. Thank you
Just a
so much. Okay.
quick comment. Yeah.
Okay.
What you just mentioned should be a first date question. Yeah. This is a first date conversation. This is not a policy panel. People need to take responsibility for the partner choose. If you're with a partner who doesn't want to do dishes, you are doing a horrible job. It's you. Uh, the government is nothing to do with this. You have a bad selection process. If you have a partner who doesn't want to take care of their own child, I mean, who who are you who are you marrying? Like, what's wrong with you? So I think there are things which can be dealt with at an individual level. Like some of these gender talks, people really need to take responsibility. And I love how I this incompetence. You said what? Sorry, because I like this term.
She said
Weaponized.
weaponize.
Weaponize incompetence. I'm gonna use it. Weaponize incompetence in your private life is your fault. At the professional level, the company level, now we can policy and But thank you for that term, weaponizing competence.
Thank you so much, all. Tinashe has just thrown some bullets to so many people. Anyway, let's do a quick break, and we'll be back shortly and move into our next segment. Thank you.
Cynthia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Mm.
Oh. We're live. I can't hear you though. Okay, now I can.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I can.
Okay. Okay. We go. Um, Welcome back, everyone, from the short break. We're now moving on to our next segment, which is personal development. Over to you, Grace.
Thank you, Cynthia. I think I'm just waiting on our panelists to return. Thank you for all our viewers and everyone in the audience for staying with us. We've really had a heated conversation, especially on the gig economy, and hopefully we can even delve more into that. So we're just going to give it a few seconds and then we can get started on personal development. But I think as we wait, you can just tell us where you're joining us from, what you're enjoying about the conversation, what's going on, and some of your thoughts on the same as we shift gears into personal development. All right. Seeing some of our panelists are back, so we're just waiting on. All right, Collins is back. Tina Shea, are you with us so we can kick off?
Yep, I'm here.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Awesome. That's good stuff. All right. So, as a great personal development, I think a lot of people would describe it differently, and I don't know what you would call it where you're from, but basically, this idea of improving yourself, bettering yourself, finding ways to get better, work on what we call nowadays toxic traits, and basically trying to be a better version of yourself, become a decent human being. So, a lot of it has been framed by the media in different ways based on who's having that conversation. But I'd like us to start with, what does personal development look like? What does it actually mean in the real sense of the word? I'll start with you, Collins.
Sorry, Grace, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure thing. I said, what does personal development actually look like? What does that mean? What does that word mean?
Yeah. I think not to be tautological, but personal and like I think it's very subjective to an individual kind of thing, right? And I want to
Mm-hmm.
importantly emphasize that because it's really up to you to visualize what you think defines growth or development or transcendence for you. And sometimes people might be able to help you with this, but at the end of the day, it takes personal initiative to define that and then also stick to it, right? So for me, personal development means if I was able to do something yesterday and maybe it took me 30 minutes to do it, uh, in a month or a couple of years from now, it still take me 30 minutes to do the same thing, or am I doing it in 10 minutes? If I am at this level of expertise, or if I have this certain network of people, has it remained the same or has it grown? So through it all, it's really transcendence, but it's transcendence that is subjective on what you want to grow as a person. For me, getting better at my career, growing the startup that we're working with, building better networks, and being more impactful is what personal development looks like to me. But I also might look like something different to someone else.
Right. Thank you for saying that. And when you talk about, I think that's the start of it in terms of the career, then we move on to the personal, like more personalized life bit. Olamide, what exactly are people who are going into the job market, whether that's in the gig economy or traditional work systems, what kinds of things, what kinds of skills rather can they focus on growing, can they focus on developing that are key in this moment in time, shifting a bit from IQ and more into EQ and relational skills and relational habits?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Grace. Very interesting question. And I think I like that you moved from, say, IQ to EQ, because more than ever before, it's becoming very important to realize that business or the workplace eventually has people at the nucleus of it, right? It's either you're creating solutions for people, a product for people, a service to people, you're working with people to get things done, even though, yes, there's a lot of machine and, like, say, IT infrastructure around that. But again, humans are directly involved, right? And that's also that's very important too. So on that note, it's important to understand that we are different intrinsically. We have different backgrounds, have different experiences that inform our personalities, our values, our perceptions, our perspectives, and all of those things. And having that understanding is now how we now relate with other people, how we interact with other people in the workplace, how do we interact with other people within the work system, how do you even understand yourself, right? Because EQ, like you mentioned, starts with even self-awareness, right? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my interests? What are the things that come easily to me? Collins was talking about things that he could do maybe in 30 minutes, right? That full understanding first, then now understanding your tendencies, then also understanding the people you're working with and the people that you're working. So based on that, beyond just your IQ now, social intelligence or social quotient or social resource is now becoming very important, right? How do you interact with people? How do you contribute to people? How do you build relationships? How do you maintain relationships? How do you communicate in relationships? How do you collaborate with people? How do you leverage relationships? Right? A whole lot of things have been said around that bit of relationship. But again, the underlying factor there is how emotionally intelligent are you in managing many of these things and these interactions. So really, it's saying that as we are intentional about building our technical competencies as talent, as assets in organizations in this time, it's also important to build the softer sides of things, right? Things that are more that would necessarily not even be on your JD, would necessarily not be on your deliverables, but would be required to deliver your deliverable in a stellar way or in a different way. So he's just saying that at the core of it, we are humans, and all the work we do revolve around humans, and it's important that that human understanding and emotional intelligence is at the core of how we interact and how we even build ourselves, getting into the labor market and deploying ourselves in the workplace.
Right, right. Thank you for saying that. And I think when you talk about this idea or this question of self awareness, and I'll pose this to you, Tinashe, I think we've seen a shift in the way that people behave and show up in the workplace, especially with millennials and Gen Z. And because at Credible Pro, I know that you have a very elaborate system based on reviews of of people's work rather, and recommendations based on what they've done before. What is the difference between a millennial and a Gen Z and how they interact with work systems, workplace in the age of the internet, in the age of the gig economy?
Right. That's an interesting question. I think for one of the biggest differences with Gen Z, I think with Gen Z we have more information and awareness of just how many options we have. Right. So we're very aware of the cocktail. We know everything that's on the menu, and I think some people like to call that lack of patience or entitlement. I think it's just what you have at your disposal, right? Whether uh, it's really a lot of it is to do with work opportunities, right? So you know that you're not stuck under one roof. You know that you could quit. You know that you can survive if you quit. You know that a company can't just blackball you, right? Which used to be the case, right? You know that you could just go somewhere and provide value, and you start afresh, right? And I think if you don't know that and you're Gen Z, now you know. Because you can, right? You can absolutely start afresh today, as the kind of professional that you want to be known as. And I think freelancing, in my view, is an opportunity to do this, right? And I like to, there's this joke we have with some of my friends in the startup ecosystem that um, freelancing is like what? It's like entry level entrepreneurship. It's like you're flirting with
Mm,
entrepreneurs, right? Um, for a lot of business people, once you start getting clients, young entrepreneurs and freelancers are not that different, right? In terms of there's so many similarities there. The difference would be the organization that comes with who people now call an entrepreneur. But the way they're trying to make money, the way they're approaching things is the same. And I think for Gen Z, the opportunity, the promise of entrepreneurship is really big. And the entry to that is freelance. And I advise that, I've seen as a recruiter, I've seen there are people who can stay on the job market for like a year without getting a job.
mm,
Instead of spending a year sending CVs, spend a year sending business proposals to people and see how that changes your game. And you find that it's a different type of game to play, and you're gonna find it's a good way to sharpen your skills. And if it works out, I have friends who wanted to get graphic designing jobs, and they started trying to do that for small businesses, and now they're making more than they would have made as a salary. And guess what? Now they are business people, and it's like entrepreneur by accident. And if it didn't work, if it doesn't work, they still get a job. Now they have a better CV. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win
mm.
situation. And I think that's the promise of Gen Z, because you're open-minded, you have access to information, and and by all means take it.
Right. Thank you for saying that. And I think what you said brings us to a very interesting conversation on hustle culture and this almost glamorization of entrepreneurship. And Natasha, I'll throw this to you, and it's a bit of a curveball, but I think a lot of people think of entrepreneurship as this glamorous thing. You have a great idea, you pitch, you get some kind of funding or something like that. But what exactly is the requirement in terms of your person, your character that is required to start and run a business and keep it running for a good amount of time?
Thank you very much, Grace.
Mm,
I think first of all, character, like you said, personal character is very important when you're starting up a business, because it's one thing to it's one thing to have the idea and understand the technicality behind it and how it is meant to work. But let's say, for example, if you're not the kind of person that is able to relate with people, right? We all know that one of the most important things for a business to scale is human resources, right? Because you will not be the vision bearer, and then also be your salesperson, and then also be your marketing person, and then also be your PR and all those things. At some point, when the business keeps growing, it's going to become overwhelming for you, or you'll be putting most of your energy on one thing and leaving the other out. Yet they are both important to be able to contribute to your growth or your revenue, or even simply where you want the business to be. Now, that's one of the examples. So that's one example, sorry. So you need to have developed your character as a person, be relatable with people, be able to keep people around you, be able to tell the difference between friendship and work. Yeah. Be a patient person, understand, have someone to talk to. Like, all those are things that may be regarded as like natural characters, and they may seem small at the start, but as you go on in the business, you realize that these are things that actually keep going. For example, let's say you've been applying for a couple of accelerator programs and maybe they're not coming through, and then you're probably feeling bad. If you've not developed a character of patience and understanding that just because today was a bad day does not mean my life is bad, you may not be able to push through that. Or let's say you're not making sales in the first year, or let's say something bad happened between you and your team members. You're not the kind of person who is able to easily solve conflict or understand that maybe it's not the time for me to react because maybe I'm still mad, and we can talk about it better the other time. So all those are things that may happen in everyday life, and you may not find them as important in business, but over time you realize that those are things that are actually pushing you to remain with people and actually have the persistence or the perseverance to grow your business. So personal character is very important. Or one thing I wanted to also highlight is the ability to learn from a person, or let's say you have a mentor, so you signed up for this program to get a mentor and they're advising you about things, but because you think you're a know-it-all, you're not taking in the things that I tell you, and yet they've probably been in that place before you. So the ability to learn, the ability to understand that you do not know everything and that there's always something new to learn, all those are characteristics of a person that we are supposed to have in everyday life. But when you're running a business or when you're planning to start up a business, they do come in handy. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. And I like that you talk about learning through different platforms or through different ways, because now, school, universities, and people and things like those do not have a monopoly over how we actually take in knowledge. People are learning on the internet, people are learning even on Instagram, on TikTok. Like, knowledge has really been opened up to the public, so to say. So, in the recent past, I think almost everyone and their cousin has been reading Atomic Habits, which apparently we're all reading. We're all listening to The Diary of a CEO by Steve Bartlett. We're all doing the hashtag 5 a.m. club. Like, it seems like we're all in the same cycle of personal development. So at what point do we then separate the idea of commercialization of personal development and who's really telling the truth, and what trends should we be able to hop on? Collins.
Yeah, so I think through doing all these different things, for example, the 5 a.m. club, the atomic habits, and everything else. And I'm sorry I keep saying this. It also like really just comes down to a person, because as Grace, you're probably doing that maybe because you want to be great at school, you want to get good grades, or you want to be great at your role, right? So depending on the reason why you're actually doing all these things, it's what determines kind of like the output you get out of it, and then the path you're taking, right? We're all taking different paths, but it's also important that while we borrow from what these people are doing or the advice we're getting, we pick out something that we can then make our own, right? So own that process and put it into whatever result you want to get out, right? So, for example, if I'm to do the 5 a.m. club, I'm probably doing the 5 a.m. club to get more time within my day, or sometimes to also make sure that, cool, I have noticed I am not as productive between 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. So I'll sleep early and wake up early so that I'm more productive between 5 a.m. to the rest of the time, right? Or it could be that you want to wake up and do a morning jog. And that's the thing you're going to pick out. Wake up, do some meditation, do some jogging, and then you're going to own that process. And then the rest of it is something that's differently yours, right? So customizing and tuning something, owning it, and then creating your own way is very important, more than just sticking to step one, step two, step three through everything. That way, you then kind of get lost in the crowd. And sometimes, not actually, most times, not everything that works for one person will work for the other. So you will find that you're doing this, but it's not working for you. And it's not because it doesn't work, it's just that it's not tailored enough to suit what you're trying to achieve.
Thank you. And that question of personalization really does come down to your own life circumstances. Recently, about 2 weeks ago, Kim Kardashian came under a lot of fire because she made this statement. She said, people aren't working anymore. She said, people just really not want to work anymore. And it's not that she's an expert on productivity, but it's that she has such a wide audience. So she has a monopoly over people that she can reach. So how can we be able to understand these structures that limit us in some ways, or that pivot us in a, or that place us in a point where we're able to pivot and actually really take off? How much do our own personal life circumstances go into how much we're able to pivot personally, professionally, in a developmental way? Olamide.
Okay, yeah. So, I personally believe in saying, principles apply, deployments differ, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and similar to what Collins was saying, it's a given that for a young person or anyone in this day, it's important to have personal development as a consciousness, as a part of your entire, framing and thinking. But it's the way to be deployed is different. And understanding that, as in the world today, we exist in different realities. The industries are different. I was having a conversation with Matt, my team, um, a few weeks back, and I was trying to, we're trying to unravel this conversation around unemployment and all of that. And we're trying to ask, what skills would you deploy for young people today that would help them to be employable? But the answer to that question is just one answer, right? You can't say teach them all digital skills and everybody will be employed. That's not applicable maybe in the pharmaceutical industry, for instance, right? So starting on that premise means that again there is a need for self-awareness, recognizing yourself, recognizing your environment, recognizing the opportunities within your space, and seeing how that informs you as a person. As a person, for instance, I have a background in pure science, right? And in getting into work and volunteering experiences, I found out that okay, although I am a science person at the core, I'm very interested in what is happening in the development space. And that was what brought me into the space, right? Yes, shaped by mentors, shaped by learning, shaped by the dynamics of things globally. And then here I am. So I think that the place of personal development again is is a journey, right? It's a process. And in that process, as much as you can anticipate what you will get, you can't exactly define what it will be. And based on that, your personal development can literally just become a new passion that you find, and then you want to find expression in it. And so that's why for me, at the core of it is getting to a point where you're living a fulfilled life, as it were. You are living the best life that you ought to live, and in any way you find expression, either in that professional area, in something you consider an hobby, or something you just give your spare time to, you know that you're eventually adding value to people, and then you're getting fulfilled as an individual. So the pivoting and either the professional and the personal mixing up, I think it's just staying within that core. What's my personal vision? Simon Sinek would say, start with why. You see, it's the what may change, the hows may change, but when that why remains the major, and that why would definitely not be the same for myself as it would be for Natasha, or it would be for Tinashe, or for Collins, or for Grace, right? But it can definitely find expressions. We can meet at some point and be divergent at other points. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. And the interesting thing is that the polar opposite of that expression and that passion and that self-awareness is that the people who abuse that, and not to take your words out of context in any way, shape, or form, but to you, Tinashe, there are people who are on the internet today, and their username is, I don't know, your life coach or your personal trainers in Uganda, I don't know, PR agency in Nigeria, things like those. So, and now everyone seems to have some type of claim to fame. So as people, especially for young people who are trying to learn, trying to get information, how can we protect ourselves? How can we be able to kind of weed out who's simply running some kind of project online, or people who are actually bringing value and adding value to our lives? Tinashe.
I mean, it's an interesting question. We're forced profits, right, in Africa. We have, people who are, everyone is starting a church and everyone is
Yeah.
selling anointing oil,
Mm.
and that's exactly what you're describing. And I don't fault those people for trying, and I think the onus is on us to sometimes not don't let your hopes and your optimism you know replace your reference checking, your screening, your due diligence. Just because you hope for something to be true doesn't mean it is. So, try to ask the basic common sense questions of, what is this person selling, right? Who have they sold it to? And how did it work when they sold it to that person? And then start there, right? If you get an answer for all those questions, you're lucky. But I suspect you weed out 95% of of all the chances. But I think as far as just the principle around getting a personal coach or someone to help you fix this about yourself, I think you can't outsource your personal or professional development, and I think it goes to what Collins was saying, that this is an individual thing. I think a lot of information is online. Yeah, there's not. For like, as someone who is into recruitment, part of me may be speaking from a point of privilege, right? Say something like CVs. Um, the reason why CV coaches have become a big genre on LinkedIn, and people are making so much money, is because a lot of job seekers are not going on Google. They're not doing their homework. So they're doing such a bad job doing their homework that someone is now making millions,
Mm.
helping tell them that your CV should be this way, should be that way. There are just too many resources online for a lot of these things that people are looking for personal coaches for. And for me, I once in my head, I'm like, the moment you're looking for someone to help you write your CV, you tweet that you're not ready. You're just telling the world that you're not ready for the job. Yeah,
Mm.
like you're telling us unprovoked that you're not ready to be hired.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, yeah, I think, like Collins was saying, it's a personal, it's an individual thing. When you're ready to eat, you know where to hunt, and I think, um, and you can't force people to take that lesson until they're ready, right? Until the bills are choking them, until I don't know, someone is sick, I don't know, and without that sense of urgency, some of these lessons would just be wasted. People have to chase these, and they're everywhere.
Mm. I hear that, and I think a lot of people actually get very offended when they're told Google that. Like, it's as simple as just looking it up. And to some extent, there's a point to be made about laziness or just mediocrity, so to say. But the flip side of that, however, is hustle culture. I don't know if Natasha, you're still with us. Natasha. All right, I think she'll join us later. I'll throw it to you, Collins, then. There's this question of hustle culture, statements such as, you'll rest when you die, you'll sleep when you die, keep grinding, keep working. People are in the gym posting videos, posting photos. There's a lot of pressure. So, and it's important that we develop ourselves, but where's that balance between we're human beings and things take time, it's a journey, it's a process. So where's the balance between laziness and mediocrity and self-compassion and treating yourself with a lot of dignity in personal development?
Yeah. For the third time, it comes down to the last person, and here's where it actually also becomes important, right? Because in hustle culture, you realize that people have different goals and they have different ways to get to those goals. You might see someone who is working within their, like, from 18 to 23, and their goal is to say by 25, I need to be earning this much, I need to be having this much materialistically, or I need to have had this much impact, right? So you're in your 23s and you, like, comparing yourself to this other person, and you're like no way close to them, right? But is your personal goal the same with them, right? Do you want to have the same things with them at 25? Maybe and maybe not, right? But if you want to have the same goals with them and you haven't yet achieved them, it's also important to know that sometimes, honestly, we don't have the same conditions. Context is very important, right? You might not have had the same doors opened for you, and they might have had more doors opened for them, right? While you're trying to hustle harder, and that might get you there, and this works most of the times, it's also important to hustle smart, right? So try to also have a conversation with this person and understand what really went into you being where you are right now. Because sometimes we just see things on the surface and we're like, oh God, this person has it so good. They're in this place. But have you really tried to understand how they got there? If they're hustling, why are they hustling like that? And what went into the works to make that happen, right? So you can then get to contextualize and be like, okay, cool. Even if I try to do this now, it's probably too late for me to work from 8 to like midnight and catch up with this person, right? Right now, I'm just chasing something that is beyond myself because I did not have the same 3 years where they were doing this. And in those 3 years, I basically wasted them. So versus me competing with them, maybe I can learn something from them and catch up later. So in, like, through this all context, personal initiative or personal understanding of what you want is important, and also just really having originality, which comes around very, very rarely. And I say that because I've also fallen victim to not having originality in some things, right? We always want to have what other people have, but sometimes maybe it's just important to appreciate what you can get and take that. And also, work life balance is an important thing, folks. Work life balance.
Right. Thank you. And I think now, happy to have you back, Natasha. When you look at the kinds of communities that we create, systems that we create, you told that you're the average of the 5 people you spend your time with, right? So what we now have, unfortunately, is that we create echo chambers of opinions, both online and offline. So both you and your friends think certain things, both you and your friends watch certain shows. There's a lot of problematic content on hustle culture, on feminine energy, on red pill content. There's so many voices, so many people saying a lot of things. How do we ensure that, and especially for you as thought leader, industry leader, in a position to actually effect change, and even for others who are joining us, who are in startups, who are in businesses, what kind of responsibility do you have then in terms of creating communities that give back and that speak the truth about basically the glow up or the come up for both men and women?
All right, thank you very much, Grace. I'll start from the point of responsibility. I think there's a saying that goes, with responsibility comes great power, or with great power comes great responsibility, something like that. So I think, first of all, like you said earlier, there's a lot of information on the internet, and for sure, the kind of information you take in is what you are, or the kind of people you hang with is exactly what you are. So, for the people that have the spaces, or that have, um, let me say, I'll give an example of maybe like brand influencers, or people that are really influential, the people that have the spaces and gather huge audiences of people. Those people, they owe their audiences authenticity, they owe their audiences truth, they owe their audiences, um I don't even know how to, like, the correct word to use, but it's very unfair if such people are then giving their audiences, information that is not real, or brainwashing them. But that is on the side of the people that have the huge numbers, or that have, the spaces where they can reach out to the people. Then us, or the people that are consuming this information, if like someone earlier said, that for you to be able to get on a self-development journey, you should know why you're getting onto it, or what the goal is. So if your goal is to be a great entrepreneur, or you want to start up something, the kind of people that you're following, are they people that have been in this kind of journey, or are they people that are going to influence you, or are you instead consuming information that is controversial to what you want to be? Are you like spending a lot of time, maybe let's say on the internet, without exactly personally developing yourself, but simply wasting a lot of time? So we have to first of all sit back and identify, like, if it's social circles, the kind of people I am hanging with, are they teaching me anything, or they are simply, wasting my youth and whatever time I am, going through. And so I think that we need to sit and evaluate ourselves, maybe, like, I don't know, at some point of our days, every day, to first of all meditate upon the kind of information we are consuming, if it is contributing to the goal that we are trying to move towards. And then communities, like I think we also talked about this yesterday, it's important for all organizations or startups that are coming up to take it upon themselves to have a sort of a community, maybe department within themselves, or any community activity that they are, acting on, so that they are not only taking from the people they are trying to save, but also understanding what kind of issues they have, and if their products, if the brand or the products they're working on are actually addressing the issues that the people they are targeting have.
Thank you for that. And just really quickly, Olamide, are you still with us? Okay, we'll go back to, we'll circle back to him in a bit. But very quickly, Tinashe, how do we create sustainable habits, thought patterns, ways of being about our life? Because a lot of people are starting, they're not finishing, or they stop halfway. How do you stay consistent? How do you make this your life and not just a gimmick or just a fad that you jump on and off from time to time? How do we stay consistent?
How do we stay consistent? Doing what? With
In your self-development journey.
right, in your self development journey.
Hmm.
Um, I think a part of staying consistent is making sure that um, you are not always changing the variables, right? Um, the variables around which you're trying to grow, and I think you need to understand what are the variables first that are important to this growth or to this development. Whether it's the company that you're operating in, right? If you're jumping from different growth environments, it's probably harder to stay consistent, right? So you to have some kind of uh, stability as far as these, whether it's who you're learning from, who you're learning with, it's what you're learning. It's like going to the gym, right? You have to pick a routine and stick to it, and not do something. You go on the mirror, you check, is that ab here yet? And then if it's not, go to the gym, you try a different routine, right? Your body, like you need to pick, let your variables stay the same, repeat, and results you eventually show. And don't try to change too many things at the same time. And the other thing which helps is making sure that you have people who are on the same journey with you, right? People who are in your exact same shoes, people who are trying to achieve the exact same things, and make it easier for you to stay true to your journey because you are facing the same challenges. In fact, a lot of times you become you start as peers and you become each other's mentors, and you become your favorite mentors. You start to look for advice to each other and to people who are above you. So I think it's really important to have people on this journey who are facing the exact same thing. So if you are a young, if you are a job seeker, it's another job seeker. If you're starting a company, you're at idea stage, it's another idea stage entrepreneur. If you're a company just started, revenue up and down, it's important to have someone who is either in that journey or who just passed it. It has been helpful for me. I wouldn't be, my company would have made it half as far as it has if it wasn't for getting, going to Friday lunches or drinks with other entrepreneurs. And then some of the problems that I'm having become, oh, you went through that too. Oh my God, how did you do this? And then it's no longer even that daunting. It doesn't even feel that deep or that professional anymore because you're surrounded by the right tribe.
Right.
Yeah.
And thank you for saying that. Just really quickly, Olamide, great to have you back. That point
Yeah.
on networking, right? And having a community, having a society around you. I saw a meme the other day that said, and like tight circles of people who've actually already made it. I mean,
Mm.
you need to network, you need to meet people, you need to talk to them, you need to learn from them. How do you balance between knowing, because there are things that are very intrinsic, very personal to you? How do you balance community, because you could be running in the same circle but you have very, very clear ideas about where it is you want to go? How do we live in a world that is so fundamentally different, but still we're all trying to be agreeable? So how do you not conform but still stay in line with what's actually happening and keep things moving for yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much, Grace. I like how Tinashe explained, that conversation around community, because for me, even thinking about my personal career trajectory and my entire space, it's tied primarily to community. But I think that community is not necessarily people that you are going in the same direction. I think it's more about people who you have shared values with, right? Um, so Collins is doing software development, right? I'm doing development. Someone else is maybe a politician. We all can be in the same community, have strong community, but what brings us together is that shared value of excellence, shared value of mutual respect, shared values of integrity, shared values of growth, shared values of just being the best. So it's not really about us even competing within a particular sector, as much as that is also very important and necessary. It's smaller compared to, in my own opinion, right? It's smaller compared to that bigger picture of how do we really align at the core. So it means that even within that community, we can have disagreements, right? We may see things from different perspectives. There are points where we don't even agree on some ideologies or some or approach to issues or something. But because we know at the core of it, maybe for instance, we know at the core of it, we are interested in each other's growth. So that disagreement is not to tear us apart, it's rather for us to have a full holistic lens. So for me, community is very key in anyone's, and I think that anyone who is looking forward to, doing amazing things in their careers and also in their businesses should definitely not undermine the place of community. But not necessarily, it's important to have people within your direct space, but ensure that you're drawing people who you have aligned, shared values, um, and that really is the driver for you. And that would really supersede whatever deficiencies you may feel to have, even if they don't have the direct support they can provide to you. But they can definitely go up and beyond because they understand how committed they are to you on your journey and all of that. So that's really amazing.
Right. Thank you so much. Over to you, Cynthia.
Thank you so much, Grace, for taking us through this segment. We are coming to the end of this event. We are out of time. But before we close, I'd like to invite you all our panelists, to give your parting shots in terms of where you think the gig economy is advancing to. How does a gig worker remain relevant in whatever spaces they're plugged into? And generally, anything that you want to leave with the audience as your final remarks. I think we can start with Collins.
All right, thanks. So my parting shot really is, as an individual, and given that we've talked about personal development today, you need to own your process. You need to figure out something that works for you and stick to that thing. Tinashe talked about consistency. We've talked about learning from other people's experience. We've talked about reading different books. And through all these things, pick out those things that work for you and just stick to them. And through that, expose yourself. The gig economy is mostly about how many networks, how many people you can pull in to hire you. So expose yourself, network, interact with people, learn from people, and that's how you get more out of your personal development from other experiences that you share. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you so much, Collins. Over to you, Tinashe.
I guess, I mean, parting shot, there's this phrase by Y Combinator to their startups. They say, make things people want, right? And I think to people in the gig economy, it's something about just being of value to other people. So just make sure that you are providing value. And if you're providing value, that's what will sustain you. Uh, the people who you provide value to, uh, either they will take care of you or the universe will take care of you on their behalf. So just provide value to be fine.
Thank you so much, Tinashe. Over to you, Natasha.
Thank you very much, Cynthia, and thank you, Grace, for hosting us. This event has been very, very insightful. The first thing I want to start with is that from the things that we discussed both yesterday and today, I believe it has been seen that the world is constantly evolving, the gig economy is constantly evolving, and personal development is one of the key drivers for evolution at an individual level. So obviously you don't want things to be evolving and for you staying in the same place. So I think that it is important for each and everyone to take personal development upon themselves so that they're simply not left behind. And then after you have evolved yourself, the second thing I'll borrow the slogan of Women in Technology Uganda, that your network is your net worth. After you've evolved yourself, who are the kind of people that you know, who are the kind of people that you're following, or who are the kind of people that you're making an intentional effort to reach out to so that you have them in your network, because those will contribute a lot to who you are or who you become. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Natasha. And lastly, we'll hear from you, Olamide.
Okay, yeah, this honestly has been a very amazing learning opportunity for me as well. And so I'll just say two things. The first is being a person of value is a moving target, right? You're a person of value today because of how much you've learned, how much you've grown until this point. So there's a saying that what took you here may not take you there. So there is that need to consistently pursue, skill yourself, and just keep getting better as an individual in these times and even as things are changing. And then the second thing would be just be a well-rounded person. It's important to be an expert in the technical skills and the work you deliver. It's also important to balance it with having very good relationship management skills and other soft skills and etiquette. Because really, that itself would spot you out of the crowd. And I wish it very well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olamide. This has been an amazing event. We hope to have you soon again, where we can discuss further on some of the things that we've touched on today that we are not able to go in depth about. I'd like to thank you all for being here, for accepting our invitation to come here and speak to our audience, to our community. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank our audience for engaging with us. Thank you for being here. I hope you've been taking notes, because a lot of important things have been said, and I'd just like to state that all our partners here who have made this event happen, they're all involved in job recruitment. It will be unfortunate and sad if you've attended this event and 3 months down the road you don't have a job and you're a young person in these times, really, and this economy. So please make use of this information that you've gotten. Until next time, thank you. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.